Hi everyone, welcome to RGI Easy Sewings. We started this channel for persons who have registered for Royal Globe Inc. sewing program and who will just need a refresher just to help them to remember what was taught at a particular class. But of course, anybody who wants to know anything about sewing is welcome to join us and just to learn as much as you can about sewing from the sessions that we will have. So that being said, let's get ready for today's session. Come on, let's have fun. Hi everyone, welcome to another session of RGI Easy Sewings. Today we're going to show you 3 simple stitches that every sewer must be familiar with. The first one we're going to do is the basting stitch. The basting stitch is a temporary stitch which can be used instead of straight beams. The intention with your basting stitch is to temporarily attach fabric together, and as a result it is a very large stitch that is very spaced. Stitches are approximately half an inch wide and about that same distance from each other. So you will notice my first stitch, and stitches can also be made more than one at a time. To complete, I go under my fabric and I am going to make a knot by creating a smaller stitch and going through the loop twice before I finish off that stitch. Okay, so my first knot and my last knot are in the same area. The basting stitch. Our second stitch is the back stitch. The back stitch is a permanent stitch and it can be used whenever you are doing repairs or whenever you have a small area that needs to be stitched quickly. In the event you have a situation where your sewing machine might not be operational and you need to complete a project quickly, you can also use the back stitch. For the back stitch, we knot our 2 strands of thread together. I'm starting from under as I did before, and for each stitch I go behind my strand of thread. I start by going behind the strand of thread, and whenever I go forward I pass the strand of thread. Notice that the space behind of the strand and in front of the strand are identical. That way we ensure that our stitches are the same length. To complete each new stitch, I go into the hole of the last stitch You will notice too that the back stitch is smaller than the basting stitch, and as much as possible as you create this stitch, you want to ensure that your stitch size is consistent. So to complete, we're going to go under just as we did before. We're going to create a small stitch which we are going to go through the loop twice to knot. So this is the back and this is the front of our back stitch. Our final stitch is the hemming stitch. The The hemming stitch is a finishing stitch that is needed for practically every garment you will make. To complete this stitch, we're going to fold first approximately 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch, and then we fold to the sides that we would like our hem to be. To keep the fabric in place, I am going to use straight pins and when completing the hem stitch, you need to ensure that your needle is on the smaller side, as you would like as little as possible of your thread to show on the right side of the fabric. So when you fold to complete your hem stitch, you need to ensure that you are folding in the reverse side or to the wrong or the underside of the fabric. Often when the hem stitch is completed, one would use one string of thread, just as we did for the basting stitch. However, one complaint with the hem stitch when it's done by hand is that it comes out very easily. So my recommendation to avoid that is that you could double your thread to ensure that you have a stronger stitch. For the knot this time, I am going to do 2 stitches in the same area. So what I do, I take a small piece of the under fabric and a small piece of the top fabric. I do that twice. One on top of the other. And that gives us our knot. To complete the hem stitch, you ensure you take a small piece of the under fabric, connect it to the edge of the top fabric, and you pull. Notice that the stitches are in a slanting format. And again, you want to be consistent with the size of your stitches. Another technique for strengthening your hem stitch is to put a knot after every 3 or so stitches. So I am on my 4th stitch. I am going to go through the loop, so I create a knot in that area. That would ensure that the stitch is longer lasting. You can make multiple stitches at the same time. As you get close to your straight pin, you remove it so that it does not become a hindrance. And again, I am on my 4th stitch, so I am going to put my knot. And we finish off just as we started, with 2 stitches in the same area. And that's it, our hem stitch. So here we have it, our basting stitch, our back stitch, And this is what our hem stitch would look like on the right side of the fabric. Bear in mind that if our thread and our material are identical, you will hardly see the stitches. And this is what the underside of those stitches look like. Thank you everyone for joining us for another RGI Easy Sewings video. I trust that you learned a lot, and if you did, please like the video as well as subscribe to ensure that you are notified when we post our videos every week. Bye!